Welcome to the channel for the first time viewers. Welcome back for my existing subscribers. It's 5 stars here, and today I want to share a little bit of bad news that I got for you in regards to the Xbox One X. Now, I picked up my Xbox One X yesterday with high expectations as far as some of the things that I was excited for, specifically the Game DVR. It was supposed to be able to record up to 4K 60 frames per second, and it was marketed as you get the most benefit from having a 4K TV, but if you didn't have a 4K TV, you'd still see most of the benefits from getting the console. Now, without focusing too much on that, because that is going to be the topic of my video, I want to give you some of the positives about the Xbox One X, because I don't want to dissuade somebody from getting the console, strictly because they only listen to the first few seconds of the video and they think it sucks. So let's talk about the good stuff. So 3 quick things that I want to touch base on about the Xbox One X. I had an Xbox One S and I have a PS4 Pro as well. So the first thing I noticed is that the graphics are more along the lines of the PS4 Pro as far as the games that are not enhanced. So Rainbow Six Siege specifically looks a little bit better, just a little bit. It's a lot more clear of an image, and it plays a lot better on the Xbox One X versus my Xbox One S. And Call of Duty, it just does everything better. So it looks better and it plays better on the Xbox One X as opposed to my Xbox One S. And the last thing is that when I first got the console and I set it up, it was very easy to go ahead and get everything started because everything as far as games and my setup were on my external hard drive. So as soon as I plugged that in, it just fired up, and within, I'd say 10 minutes, because I have decent internet, it was about 10 minutes to do the update for the console, and I was up and running playing my games. Now, there are 2 reasons why I wanted to get the Xbox One X. And the main reason is because I wanted to get 60 frames per second capturing, as I've mentioned in previous videos. And that was something that they pretty much promised to us as far as what the console will be able to do. And it can do that. I want to be clear for the people that do have 4K TVs and 4K monitors. It's my understanding that if you have a 4K monitor or you have a 4K TV, all you have to do is just toggle on the 4K option and it records in 4K SDR or 4K HDR, which is high dynamic range and standard dynamic range, in 60 frames per second. So to me, it's a software hiccup where the bottleneck happens, and if you have a 4K set and it allows you, then it kind of enhances that and cranks it to that next notch where the 60 frames per second recording is activated. And that's why you can go through YouTube and see multiple channels that have 4K 60 frame per second gameplay that was directly captured from the Xbox One X. So they didn't lie about it, but what they kind of failed to say is that as the software is right now, if you have a 1080p setup, then all you get is 1080p 30 frames per second. Now, I've taken a clip in 720p, so I changed the resolution to 720p to see whether or not that would make a difference and let me record in 60 frames per second. It still didn't, and I had it in 1080p and it still doesn't. So needless to say, the gameplay content that you see on here is in 1080p and it looks good still. It's not that it doesn't look good, but I wanted it to be more fluid. A lot of people that are deep into the tech of the games understand that 60 frames per second just looks a lot more fluid than 30. And for fast-paced games, it stands out a lot more. So the faster the movement, the more fluid it looks. And that's the difference between the 60 frames per second and the 30 frames per second, which is why it's a big deal that this console can play games at 60 frames per second more consistently than the Xbox One. So with that said, that's my main gripe with the console, is that they didn't really disclose that. And that was the main reason that I bought the console, is so that I can record in 1080p 60 frames per second at minimum. I didn't need the 4K. I don't have a 4K TV. I did also want the better graphics and better performance, which that part was delivered in full. So I'm definitely loving the performance increase. So as a result, if you want to stay tuned to this channel, if anything changes and they do let you start recording in 60 frames per second, I will make a video about it. And that way you can kind of know if you're a content creator and you were thinking about getting this console for that reason. But like I said, if you have a 4K TV, I mean, you could fire it up and everything is right as rain. So you can go ahead and jump on it now. And I haven't been able to see anybody that's made a video about this or any news source that has said it. And the few people that I talked to, they all have 4K monitors and 4K TVs. So when I tell them that mine isn't recording in 60 frames per second, they're kind of like, well, did you try changing some of the settings? And I'm like, yeah, I did. I even got on the phone with Microsoft, and that's pretty much what the representative told me, is that that feature is activated or enabled once you get to the 4K display output. And it makes a lot of sense, because if you look at it from the perspective of the console and how they market it, they say 4K 60 frames per second together almost every single time. So they never say you can record in 60 frames per second as a generality. They kind of always say 4K 60 frames per second, 4K 60 frames per second. And that's the end of the video, guys. I just want to get this news out there. I do love the console, but that is my main gripe. I really wish it could record in 60 frames per second, and there's nothing to say that they can't patch it with a software update, or maybe it's something they don't even know about. So maybe if you know somebody that works with Microsoft, share this video with them and see if they can get anything done. I know I'm working on Twitter, and when I was on the phone with them, I also made a request that way. All right, you guys take it easy, and I'll catch you on the next one.